This concept is function of a sentence. So how do I identify these ones? First, these are going to ask about the function, obviously, and specifically they will say which choice best describes the function of the X sentence in the overall structure of the text. And X can be the underlined sentence or the second sentence or third sentence or anything like that. The formula we'll use is step 1, read the passage. Step 2, summarize the passage in your own words. Step 3, understand what the function of every sentence is. Step 4, find the answer that agrees with your function. So, what do I mean by function? So, for example, the function of a sentence can be to say a claim, or it can be evidence supporting that claim. It can be background information. It can be something that is coming in to contradict the initial claim. So any of those things are functions of a sentence in relation to the passage as a whole. So let's give this one a try together. Dark matter, which makes up approximately 27% of the universe, cannot be observed directly because it doesn't interact with electromagnetic radiation like light. Scientists infer its existence through its gravitational effects on visible matter, such as stars and galaxies. For decades, researchers have attempted to detect dark matter particles directly using various experimental methods. Deep underground laboratories shield specialized detectors from cosmic radiation, allowing them to register the rare and subtle interactions that might occur when dark matter particles collide with ordinary atoms. Despite these sophisticated efforts, conclusive direct detection of dark matter particles remains elusive, leading some physicists to propose alternative theories to explain the observed gravitational anomalies. So, now I want to understand this passage. Let's go through it sentence by sentence and I'll show you what I mean. Dark matter, which makes up approximately 27% of the universe, cannot be observed directly, so this is just explaining dark matter. Scientists infer its existence through its gravitational effects, so even though they can't observe it, they can infer it. And for decades, they've done research on it using different methods. And now this sentence, this is the function of it. It is providing an example of one of these methods and how they do the research. So I'm going to say this sentence is giving an example. Then finally, despite the efforts, essentially it's saying, even though they're doing this, it's not going great. It's still hard. But I'm going to say this sentence is an example of the experimental methods. So now I'm going to find an answer that agrees with that. So pause the video real quick and guess the answer that agrees with that. All right, so let's do it together. A, it introduces a new theory about dark matter. No, it's not introducing a new theory at all. It's just giving evidence on how they experiment with it. B, it transitions the discussion from theoretical aspects of dark matter to practical applications of this knowledge. No, it's once again just saying how they can research this really hard to do thing. And C, it describes why scientists believe dark matter exists despite never having observed it directly. No, that's not what the sentence is saying. It's saying an example of an experimental method. And D, it explains a specific experimental approach used in the dark matter research mentioned earlier. Okay, perfect. So, right? Yes, it explains a specific example of how they do this research. So D is the right answer. All right, try this one yourself. Make sure before you look at the answers, you know what the function is in your own words. Pause it and give it a try. The evolution of flight in birds represents one of nature's most remarkable innovations. Early dinosaur ancestors of birds possessed feathers primarily for warmth and display. Over millions of years, these feathers gradually became larger and more complex, eventually allowing for gliding. The development of a keeled sternum, a bone extension that anchors powerful flight muscles, was another critical adaptation. Scientists have recently discovered that some modern flightless birds, including ostriches and emus, still possess the genetic blueprint for flight structures, despite having lost the ability to fly. This evidence suggests that evolution doesn't always progress linearly towards increased complexity, but can also involve loss of previously developed traits when environmental pressures change. Okay, so what is this saying, right? Birds evolved to fly. They got all this change over time, so they're able to fly. And then this sentence seems like it's essentially saying, yeah, but it's not that simple. Not all birds are still gaining this more complexity. Some are actually devolving. So it's not as straightforward as it would seem. And then it says this evidence suggests that evolution doesn't always progress linearly. So then here's the actual claim at the bottom. There's this complex different ways that it evolves depending on the animal and the pressures of the environment. So I'm going to find an answer that's saying it kind of complicates their general idea that they are evolving with more complexity. So A, it refutes the main claim about bird evolution presented in earlier sentences. No, I don't think so. I don't think this is an actual claim. It's just giving background information about how birds were evolving over time. It's not saying any claim about that. B, it introduces an example that complicates the narrative of flight evolution described previously. Perfect. So, right, all of this is background information saying we're evolving to fly, and then this is saying, but they're not always evolving to fly. So I think that's a B is a great answer. C, it provides evidence supporting the earlier claim that flight muscles attach to the keeled sternum. No, that's just not what the sentence is doing at all. D, it begins a discussion of genetic research that dominates the remainder of the passage. No, I think this is all talking about just evolution and to an extent genetics, but this sentence isn't specifically talking about that. It's given an example that complicates the narrative of flight evolution. So B is the correct answer.